Ladies and gentlemen, we are here in the barn with a very special guest. Boom, Matt Powers. And we're
Hey,
here.
everybody.
Yes, many of you know Regenerative Soil Microscopy was funded 24 hours ago, and now we're at about 110%. Congratulations,
Thank you
Mr.
so much.
Powers.
Thank you.
Yeah, how do you feel?
I'm so excited because we're almost to the halfway mark, which means that, this is something that people really are going to get involved with. The database, the course and the books, the way to navigate, the way to discuss and interpret, all of it. Everyone's really enthusiastic about it, which, you know what I mean? With microscopy, you're like, you never know, right? I felt like this was the most niche thing I'd ever done. This was the most vulnerable, the biggest stretch. And people all just
I'm
came.
raising my hand. Yeah, because I felt the same way when I saw the book. I was like, "Oh, this is a stretch," but he's got such a big following that this is like the nuts and bolts. So if you want to know, you're going to want to know. And then when Kickstarter picked it up, I'm like, "What? Really? Who is on that team?" Because I went over to see some of the stuff that they pick up, and it's like woke restaurants or foreign food. It's not that. It's more broad based. So
Yeah.
soil microscopy, you are a genius.
Well, I feel really blessed. I just feel really blessed to have such support and to also have, I mean, I meditate. And many of you who meditate know how like things just come to you. And when you're doing creative processes, things just come. And I've had so many breakthroughs in the past few weeks, in the past week, in the past few days. I've been talking to like retired scientists, current scientists, people working with new technology and old technology to make sure that these new breakthroughs are valid. And the most amazing things, we're going to be able to turn like a cheap microscope for, like $300, $400 to a dark field microscope, to an epifluorescence microscope, to a polarizer microscope, thanks to you, sir. And so it's this like liberation of all these different sciences and the combination of them and pulling all these things out of the dark and connecting them with the database. It's the most exciting thing. The community-based solutions, the open data, the transparency, it's the only way that we're going to be able to prove and allow the cream to rise to the top and to show to the rest of the world how compost, how bokashi, how EM, how these are the winners. And we're not just doing soil testing over there. That's why this is so exciting. We're also doing the bricks. We're doing the plant sap analysis. We're doing the bionutrient meter. So we're correlating the health of the plant with the health of the soil and the organic matter and all of the different composting amendments, vermicompost, hot compost, all of it. And then people are going to be able to see what works best, because right now, from my perspective, it's a combination of almost all of those things that works best. I was just talking to someone, Diamond, you're going to love this. They take their hot compost and then feed it to the worms to pasture to take care of any E. coli like we were talking about, but then they plant cover crop in it. So the exudates go down, so they prime the compost with a cover crop, and then they sell it only once it's gone through an entire maturation season. So it's like 12 months, and then they grow a crop in it, and then they sell it.
Beautiful. So I'm interested in this. On the Kickstarter, you had a lot of people respond early on, and you got feedback from all over the world. You've got supporters from all over the world on this one. And a lot of the people are taking the course from South America and, well, just all over the world. And what were some of the people's concerns or interests when they were contacting you? Are they interested mostly in the knowledge of how to use the microscope and learn about soil, or are they interested in the database and also the microscope and actually like improving their bioregion?
I think most people are asking which microscope to get.
Yeah.
And the number one thing that I would say is to get a microscope that allows you to hook up a camera to it. So anything that's HD or even 4K if you can find that. That's sometimes harder. But even my AM scope, $200 microscope, I can put in the eyepiece an $80 camera. So all of us can hook up a camera, and if we can do that, you can do everything that I'm talking about, because I figured out how to basically, I created all these adaptations and modifications and techniques to do what we would do with like a $7,000 microscope with that $200 one.
Yeah,
And
and I saw Matt. There are some models you can get that get good ratings in the $1,000 range that have all the features of the one behind you, above and below, illumination, even with all the features we need, including polarization. So I basically search polarization above and below microscope, and for about $1,200, you can get one with cameras, high definition with video. And they're called 3-point or something. What does that mean? There's 3 curves before it gets to it.
I I don't know that one.
Okay.
That I need to find out about that one.
I'll send you the links.
You know, the wild thing about microscopes is that there are so many really expensive microscopes out there that are experimental and specific to certain things, and so many of them have so many chemical preps in there. The beauty of what I'm teaching is that people can take a microscope that's a regular bright field microscope. They can adapt it at least 4 different ways so that they can see dark field, epifluorescence, polarization. And then I have this whole light field adaptation that I'm talking about. And then we can also do stains. And so it opens up all these doors and allows people to participate with all sorts of different microscopes at all different levels. And so that's really the power of what I'm teaching. There's so many crazy microscopes. I was looking at a microscope that shoots the light sideways through it, and it takes an image of things sideways through a hydrogel that's suspended upside down, and then it gets a 3D image. And I'm like, that's wild and crazy. I don't think we can have that for everyone yet. You
No,
know what
but
I mean?
let's talk about the Kickstarter. Look at this, 104 backers now,
Whoa.
27,868. That's 2,000, almost 2. That's over 2,000 in a day. And so you might go big on this, a bit big, 50K, maybe 100K. And so we will see some stretch goals. But I think one of the successes of this is you adding the introductory course. A lot of people can't afford $1,000 or $1,200 to take the full course. They can't, obviously, people can't afford $3,600 for a university course. This is way more practical and beneficial than any university course. But I do digress. But for just, how much is it? $200, you get the intro.
Yeah, you get the introductory course. You also get the ebook. You get included
A real
in the
book.
database. The ebook.
Okay.
Yeah. And but for a little bit more, you get the actual physical book as well with
Okay.
that. And so you can do any package, any level that you like. But the idea is that you figure out how to use a microscope. You get comfortable. You figure out what is what. You get introduced to all the different concepts, all the different ideas, all the different techniques. And the mastery level, the certification level goes into depth with everything. And then it has training, it has feedback. So that's a whole path. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is they're going to be able to have a certification badge in the database, and so they'll be able to really help people, and people will be able to find them and identify those are the people to listen to, and check out and follow their stuff. And the stretch goals, I'm really excited about this. I'm still figuring out what we can and can't do, given like how far the stretch goals like we plan. But I want to design the database to have tools built into it to make it so that all soil consultants, all soil labs will want to be part of this. Like, absolutely will see it as a must to be part of this database for the ease of doing all the annoying calculations and ratios and percentages and bacterial count, all that. And even mycorrhizal inoculation rates, all of that.
So if we have any experts out there on databases, like, or especially in the medical industry, I know Leah is my partner. She is an expert in databases. So maybe I'll
Mhm.
throw this by her. And she has like ADHD. So she loves to figure it out. Once you give her all the stuff, here, make this usable for a dumb person. And, but are you still working on what you're going to have in this database, or is there already a raw format?
Well, I know exactly what I want to see, but what I've always learned as starting out as a high school teacher, and then I've taught college, I've taught K through 12. I've learned in all my experience teaching that there needs to be a feedback dialogue, and so we're going to be beta testing it with all the people that sign up for the Kickstarter for 3 to 6 months, because I really want to get that feedback. I'm going to do what I've got my idea, but even in discussing like the images that I posted online, folks are like, "Oh, this is amazing. Have you considered this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, we can rotate the top 10s. And so it'll be the most fungal dominant compost samples. And then it'll be the highest rated interpretation interpretations, because we're going to have the quality of the image or video be a separate rating from the quality of the interpretation. So this is going to actually really help a lot of people.
And that's so you can't say that you got the bomb diggity, because everyone else will be able to look at your slide and be like, well, it's not as much. Yeah.
But that's the whole point, is like we'll allow the best practices to rise to the top. We're going to be doing DNA testing. I know several other people that are doing DNA testing that are wanting to contribute to this. I'm going to be taking on more and more samples to correlate with the other entries that my students are adding, so that we have that DNA, microscope, soil mineral, plant sap, bionutrient, and bricks all in one, because that perspective creates an undeniable self-evident truth that living soils with high organic matter, the kind of soils that you know and love, I know you know and love these soils, and your audience knows and loves these soils, those soils we're going to prove out, we're going to show as a community, and we're going to have the most incredible soil show up, and it's going to be incredible. All the top 10s, it's going to be like, oh, well, those are all permaculture and regenerative farms.
Mm.
And yeah, it's going to make things like the light of day, is going to
Yeah.
shine
Well,
and
I'm
people
going to
can't hide.
be working on some Johnson Sue reactors and make my own beam here, because I have a reason to. I now
Mhm.
can analyze it, and I can be on the top 10 list.
Yes. Yes. And I know your beam is that good.
But I've never made beam here.
Oh, okay. Well, the beam that you've promoted.
Yeah, that beam's from, I think, Indiana. So I need to make my own beam with my own manures from here and use whatever's in the air here to see what the beam does here. Right?
Okay,
Isn't that
so
how it
I've got a
works?
perfect idea for you. So I'm about to do this, and I encourage everyone to do this. Let's not like go crazy. Like, let's not like break our backs. Let's set up automated piles. So this is what this guy Wormies was doing. This is what Michael Whitman at Blue Sky Biochar was doing years ago and still does. And I just called him up. I was like, I got to do this. You can run on a timer a bounce house blower into perforated piping uh, beneath hard like a hardware cloth, and then on top of that you can put shade cloth, and then you can put everything on top of that, and you can hot compost without turning it, because you can have the aeration come from below, and then you can cap it with biochar to capture all the CO2 and the nitrogen that's being lost and gassed off, and then you have charged biochar, and you've not lost those nutrients, and you've done a hot compost without turning, so all the fungal numbers are as high as possible, and then we're going to be putting it into the vermicompost. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
And that's because you're putting it in the vermicompost, because to get rid of the nasty pathogens.
Well, it's like a fail safe, and that's why I encourage everyone to think about it that way. just because it get all right. So okay, let me just put it all out there. Because some folks aren't doing compost hot enough, like the person who's like learning, we love and forgive them for this, okay? But if they don't do a hot enough compost, they're training the E. coli, Salmonella, and Shigella to actually survive heat. So the next time we compost, they survive, even if we get to heat, and they're spreading. So this snips that in the bud and just stops that transmission. If we all do this for a number of years, that problem will be gone, and we'll nip that in the bud. There's a lot of that the testing and the database is going to show, like, clear as day. as I've seen, but that's the whole thing. We got to do this as a community. We got to have everything be public so that people can see it, and then people can duplicate it and with themselves, and then show it, because we have to be smart and also honor what works, because the best practices that we've talked about for years, Diamond, haven't we? We've talked about for years what really works, and now we're getting to the deep between good, better, and best, and the microscope is the key piece in that. You can't do things that you do on the microscope in any other place. You can see how things behave. You can see how things connect. You can diagnose the health of the plant, the health of the roots, the health of the soil in seconds.
Yeah, and there isn't even a test you can send your soil out to like this, where it's not like even financially viable. So what happened was, like, when we first met, everyone's moving around and making mistakes in the garden and using these practices, and we're like, "Oh, this works great," but this is the end game. This is the quantifiable scientific method approach, where there can be no other answer or result except this database, period.
And it's free for everyone to just join and to get the deeper metrics and all those tools for analyzing your soil quickly and easily that we're building as part of this database. You would have to be a member, but that's included when you sign up for the course or get the book. And like, there's all these different options that include it. So this is designed for everyone to get involved, everyone to get excited, everyone to get the training they need. And what's so wild is that it felt like this like strange kabuki dance, and then like no one was like talking to each other, no one was showing each other's results. And I kind of like just started asking people, like, point blank, like, are you doing this test when you do this? Are you seeing this when you do this? Is this what you see? And like showing my work. And then everyone was like flabbergasted. And then they started showing me their work. And I'm like, wait, and that's that. And they're like, really? And then I like show them the documentation. There's so many misconceptions out there, but because I've been able to learn from a whole diverse group of people, and then to do I've read through tons of literature, and one of my secret superpowers is that I've got a photographic memory. So I remember everything I read. So I've gone through the literature, and this is the most incredible time period in soil science ever. We're about to crack the code on not just like what best soil is, because we've talked about best practices in a general way for years, like I said, but it's like how to supercharge things, because so many of us have moved on to homesteads that were beaten up land or marginalized land to begin with. How do we make it a paradise in those trying circumstances? Like, boom,
Yeah,
that's what we're going to unlock. I'm talking about
because the clock is ticking. I mean,
yeah.
the clock is ticking. The sooner you start, the better. Hey, you guys can get in on the ground floor here, because if you didn't hear what Matt said, is that you're going to be part of the beta test. So if you get in at any level where you're involved with the database, it's not going to just be a year from when it starts. You're going to be, it's a year and a half or something, because you're going to work the kinks out in the beginning, and you're getting in on the ground floor of something that is unprecedented as far as the type of data being shared with like-minded people, and people, just like Matt said, that are now going to be sharing. And the people that had their paper and they're like, I don't even know what this means. Now you'll be able to understand what that means.
Absolutely. And we're also going to like kind of guilt all of our local farmers and compost makers into showing their numbers in a competition. They're going to be like, "Oh no, see, my plants are more nutrient dense and my soil is higher organic matter." And suddenly we get them motivated in the most beautiful way. And then we honor the ones who actually are doing it. And then suddenly we have a beautiful local farmers market that emerges. That and there's unique varieties for your area. And then the restaurant scene and the food just becomes medicine. And it's this beautiful life that emerges, this beautiful local economy. And yeah, and all of it comes out of that ability to pull this out of the darkness, to make these things transparent. So the database, that it was wild because I've almost finished writing the book. I've got the conclusion to write, and I want to add more the new protocols that I've just come up with to it. But I've basically written it, and in finishing it, I realized that I needed this database to handle all the information that we were going to generate as a community of of consultants and explorers. I really think of us as explorers in this situation. The soil is like space. It's like, and once you know how to navigate and you have the right tools and in a sense of what things are, it's more like you're an explorer and we're making sense of this space together. Because I mean, with just like nematodes, they know 0.01% of all nematodes that have been identified. That's why like there's
Well,
it's why
it's
it's so
beyond
incredible.
that. I mean, think about it this way. It's only this decade that we realized that there are trees that are communicating using pheromones in Africa, where when one tree gets overgrazed, it can warn the others that it's about to happen to them, and they can actually toxify their leaves. And
And we'll
then, and now we have the work with the mycorrhiza, and we're realizing that the forest, like a large tree, an old growth tree, will actually sacrifice itself to feed the undergrowth to keep it alive. I mean, this is all new thought, and some people you tell that to are like, "Oh, that's all hippie bull crap," and you're like, "No, well, this is
you
just the
can see it.
beginning of understanding."
And you can see it. That's the most incredible thing. Like we talk about like how fungi is like the highway of the soil, but you literally with the microscope can see it. You can see how they partner with the plant, how they go inside the plant and go around the cells. You can literally on a grid just counting the blocks. That's why I'm saying like we can design tools to help people, because we're taking pictures of the roots, highlighting the section of the root, and then highlighting the parts of the root that are glowing, and then creating a ratio and a percentage. It's like, let's automate that. We can automate that nowadays. It's because no one has invested in it, but this is going to allow us to instantly be like, oh, I have 20% inoculation. That's really good. I have 40% inoculation. That's excellent, right? And then maybe your tree, you're like, oh my gosh, it's got like 60, 70% inoculation. That's a tree that is senescing. That's a tree that's letting the fungi take over. And those endophytes are shifting into saprophytes. And you can see that before it happens by just examining that relationship. It's a whole new day. And the wild thing is when we look at these plants in the right light, they look like they're made of chunks of glass, and you can see into them. And the microbes go into them. They eat microbes. We can see this. We can prove it. All of you can do it in minutes. You can see this, but you might have to grow seeds in a little baggie for a few days with the actual inoculant on it. This is the very sophisticated grow room right here, right?
Yeah.
This is orange giant amaranth seed with inoculant on it. I was doing a test and an examination on that earlier, and I made a video on it. I feel so excited about this because this is going to change all of soil science. We're calibrating, we're creating new ways of seeing things that are much more accurate. and it's going to allow people to do things that were completely out of reach financially with their current microscopes, with their bright field microscope. So, and like I said, you can even do it from an eyepiece. So it doesn't, it could be using with an iPhone too, iPhone camera. It doesn't even have to be, you're buying another camera or something like that. We all can participate in this and help unlock the next level of soil and soil science.
I was on mute. My bad. Now I was trying to pull up that picture. You sent an epifluorescent picture over to me on Skype a few days ago. I just can't get it up here, but that would be fantastic. Maybe the next update we do when you reach your first stretch goal, we'll show some slides of the interesting microscope work and show people how to look at mycorrhiza. But if you want to get involved, it's easy. You come over to Matt's Kickstarter here and you get involved just like the other 104 people before you have. There's 16 days ago to go. That means we're not even at the halfway point. And the last time we had a podcast, I said, you know what? I think we're going to be talking before the halfway point. And you were still sweating some bullets. Do you remember that?
I do. And we were talking about, should I do an introductory course? And you were like, go for it. And then that was a huge step. I mean, like so many people jumped in because they felt like, all right, well, you're going to teach me how to work with the microscope, get me comfortable, and before I take that deeper dive. And that was, thank you.
You're welcome. $26,868. Congratulations, Mr. Powers. Now the second book in the trilogy is funded, as well as the coursework and the database, Regenerative Soil Microscopy, a breakthrough in permaculture science, soil science in general. You're a genius. We love having you on. Keep up the good work, and we will keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Diamond. And everyone, thank you. Check out the Kickstarter. Join us and check out the video. It'll explain everything more. There's so much that's going to roll out as part of this. Have a good one.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Love you, Matt. And that's boom.
Love you too.